What up, guys? When we are selecting gear for survival and preparedness, we need to be really smart about the gear we pick. Ultimately, weight is the only deciding factor as why we might carry something or not carry something. But in that realm, two is one and one is none. It's an adage you hear all the time in the survival and prepper community. But we need to be packing more, provided that we can carry it. Now, in class all the time we see gear failing, and whether it's like a knife chipping, or lighters not working because they're too cold for the gas to function. uh, we see gear failing, and part of the thing that I'm most happy about with our classes is we kind of are a testing ground for gear. We have a saying that when in the real survival scenarios, we want no new gear. We want heavily tested, tried and true stuff that we know will get us through, because ultimately our life depends on it. But in the testing, we have lots of things go wrong. And the testing being like our survival essentials workshop or whatever. But we want to make sure that we give the gear out to people so they know what's good. But oftentimes people bring in their own stuff. And when it breaks, we have stuff available for them. But today we're talking about two is one and one is none. It's a military and survival term that applies perfectly to selecting your gear and being ready in any scenario. So your gear breaks, or you lose it, or for some reason your gear doesn't work correctly. So we have a rule in camp that your knife can either be one of two places, either in your hand or in its sheath. There's no middle ground. And a lot of times we'll see people carving, put it down on the ground, and that's fine and good. But in a worst case scenario, and even in camp when it's not an issue at all, people lose their knives. And when we have more people in camp, there's more of an ability for that really to go wrong. So you forget where you put your knife, you get up to go do something else. Not only could you come back and come looking for it and never find it again, but somebody might find it with their foot. Now you've cut up somebody, now you've injured somebody, and in a survival situation, that might be that might cost you your life. So we have that rule, the knife rule. Two is one, one is none. The knife is in your sheath or in your hand. But we have multiple knives, because when we do bone work, when we do heavy carving, the knives get dull, and we need to have the ability to not have to sharpen it so much. But because that's really really difficult in a true survival scenario, finding hopefully you're in Arkansas and there's an Arkansas whetstone that you can sharpen. River rocks work good. I mean, we've talked about that in other videos. But having multiple knives, and the way that I break it up is I have there's a couple we have multiples of tools, right? And in the thinking about multiple tools, there's multiple systems. So in the knife, I might have or in a cutting edge more specifically, I might have a heavy duty axe, a saw, and then several knives. Now the knives are even broken down further, in a chopping blade, a larger chopping blade, a smaller fine trap trigger, specifically carving blade, and then maybe another one that's used for fish and game preparation. So I'm not really having contamination. But if I lost all of those and all I had was one, any one of those cutting edges would fill the gaps. Now, making a bow drill with an axe is extremely it's tough, right? And I actually have a scar on my finger. I don't know if y'all can see that. But it's right there. When you come to class, I'll show it to you. But that was from putting an axe through my finger, trying to make a bow drill. So they're not ideal, but in a survival situation, having those multiples of gear will give you the ability to craft some sort of survival. So we have individual tools, we have multiple of those tools, but also multiple systems, like the cutting edge that I just talked about. Also, if we think about food, having the skills for multiple ways of procuring food. If one goes wrong, We can't rely on any of those things, and it's like we're putting out a net, and the larger our net, the more fish we're gonna catch, the more whatever it is we're gonna catch. If we're talking sales and marketing, the larger funnel that we have, the more people are gonna find our whatever it is that we're selling. But if we're talking about food, we have like hunting uh, with like a rifle, hunting with a crossbow, um, fishing, and trapping, like for all the multiple systems in food. If we have water, we might have like the ability to boil in a container, boil in a sip well, rock boil, um, filter with like like a Katadyn pocket or a life straw, or having a survival still. So we have multiple ways of do that, because all environments aren't the same. Animals are instruments played by the landscape. I know you heard me say that before. And depending on the landscape, we might not be able to employ the tool of our favorite. So we need to have multiple tools. We need to have multiple systems and multiple redundancies in those systems. uh, like we need to be thinking about active and versus passive. And if you've watched us for any length of time, you know that we're big on calories out, calories in, and how can we get the most calories in with the least amount of calories like expended. So, and that's the hunting and trapping, or hunting versus trapping discussion. Is, do we want to sit out by a tree and maybe shoot like one piece of game, or do we want hundreds of traps? That we talked about this, several nights ago, with the Lykoff family discussion, and just the hundreds of traps that they put out, and we're still going hungry. But if they were hunting, they have to go do all the work, where we can let traps do it for themselves. So if we think about active and passive in systems, also we can think about that in choosing gear. So like if we choose a water filter like the Katadyn Pocket that has an active uh, means of like pumping, we're putting out calories. If we choose something like a Sawyer, we can use gravity fed. But having those multiple options in our kit is like really ideal. And Tom Brown, he says, he survival instructor, he says that like if you're taking anything out there with you, you're no longer surviving, but you're like having a really good time with like some real skills. So survival versus glamping, that's a different discussion. But having those multiple systems, those multiple redundancies, is really important. People come out all the time and they'll bring a lighter with them, and that's great. But when it gets super cold, that the fluid's not running. So if we need to have in our kits, we don't need to, but it's really nice to have a lighter, some matches, ferro rod. If because ferro rods are great, they shoot like 2 or 3,000 degree sparks. It's easy to rely on those things. But say you lose your ferro rod, we still need to have the skills in our body, in our hearts, in our minds to affect our survival. So knowing your friction fire, knowing your bow drill, your hand drill, and any number of the friction fire methods, the fire plow, the fire thong, uh, the strap drill. There's so many. Knowing one, but in all of those, we have the redundancy of systems, and it comes back to that two is one and one is none. If we have two and we lose one, now we're down to one, and we might as well, like, it's only a matter of time until that one is gone, because entropy is a law of nature. It's the law of the universe. Entropy is like the degradation of matter and energy in the universe over time. Like, I think it's like really, it comes from like radioactive studies. Like, you have your something is this radioactive, and over time the radioactiveness diminishes until it just like entropies back into nothing. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a physicist, but entropy is absolutely a law of nature. It's probably like a subset of one of those thermodynamic laws, but it really cements the point that we need to have lots of gear, lots of options, not just gear, but options for taking care of our needs in a survival situation. So Have yourself a couple knives, have yourself a couple ways to create fire, have a couple shelters with you. So, like a sleeping bag is great, but if you lose your sleeping bag or ultimately you're out in nature long enough and it gets holes in it, know how to build a debris hut, know how to insulate yourself from the ground and the air above you, and you'll be all right. So, the more we have, two is one is none. Three is two, and two, it goes on there. We're just counting pretty much. But the more we have, the more comfortable we can be in a survival situation. I know if you've made it this far, you're passionate about survival and surviving whatever the universe throws at you. So, click the like button, subscribe so you never miss a video, but ultimately check us out at sustainablehomestead.com. There you can look through our resource library of survival manuals. You can sign up for our Homestead Mastermind, where every Wednesday we talk with farmers, ranchers. Uh, Man, the list is so long. Project developers, survivalists, bushcrafters, makers. We're here trying to build abundance for ourselves, our families, and our communities, and discussing techniques to help you do that faster. There's a wealth of experience, lots of time and money, and real hands-on people wanting to share their successes and failures to make you do it faster and easier without the expense. And if you really want the download of information, come visit us in person. Sustainablehomestead.com, again, is the place to look for that information and shave decades off the time it would take for you to figure this stuff out on your own. Our Survival Essentials Workshop is a great place to start, and everything that we do builds on that. So, preparedness today means peace of mind tomorrow. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the future. Peace.